Gather, veterans. It's time to join the fight. The long war begins.
Kenny Boucher here, The Long War, hitting you up with my partner in crime, Wyatt Turk.
Yo, what's up, man?
Yo, man, ain't no Rob Baer tonight.
Ooh, the diarrhea duo rides again.
That's right. Oh my God, is that our new official nickname? Is that our media name?
No, I thought of that after Tactics when you were like, "I'm gonna go shit my pants." I was like, diarrhea duo. That's us.
Damn, that's good. So, shout out to Rob. You know, he's been going through it. Like he's not feeling great again today. You may post about it, you may not, but we're out here doing our thing. Verbal diarrhea for the next hour, hopefully. Tonight, we're going to be doing a hobby AMA, which we do these occasionally when we have no content or there's a lack of preparedness. We haven't done one in 2022 yet, so that's not bad. We also have a crowdsourced Would You Rather that happened today on the After Hours show while we were live doing the pregame. So if you listen to this on your drive to work, there was some fun stuff that happened. I haven't seen these, right? They've been held back from me and crowdsourced, and Wyatt will hit me with it here in a minute. Wyatt will be leading us in our tabletop marketplace, our news memorial desk. And we have a little discussion about Angron as well.
Yeah.
That's the table of contents. We're going to speed run this podcast because we can. Wyatt, would you like to roll out to the Cave of Wonders?
Sure can. So, would you rather all hairs on your body are gone forever, or all hairs on your body grow to be as long as your current longest hair, and it's like that forever?
Damn. I was like, I mean, because at first I was like, you can hit me with a, like, now my hair just doesn't, like, stop growing. Like, come on, man. No, that's a good one because you're saying I can have hair still, but there is a limit to how long it'll get. But that limit it currently is, I'm just gonna, yikes.
Yeah, it's deceptive too.
Yikes. It's like a solid 6 to 7 inches, man. Every hair in my body, beard, mustache, nose, ear, sack, BAC.
You got like hairs on your.
I got hair. I got some hairs on my nose, like 3 of them that grow on my nose. I got to shave them down.
Yeah,
bro, I got like top of the ear hairs, and so this hair just is like immune to being cut, huh?
Yeah, just like that forever.
Damn. No eyebrows, nothing though. Totally. God, no matter how you slice it, you're gonna be looking crazy.
Yeah, in your case, you're basically Chewbacca now.
Oh yeah, like I am straight Chewbacca. I mean, it's bad. Like my arm hair, my knuckle hair. God damn. I'm just looking at my hand. Do I have hair in my palms? Thank God I don't.
Ooh.
Thank God.
Imagine like the hair on your finger knuckles is like.
Oh no, I'm
8 inches long now.
I mean, I'm dog. You know, like I'm gonna have like ponytails all over me, dude.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have like my hair. I'm gonna have my shit in a ponytail back here. All my face hair in a couple of different pigtails. You know, a little. You know, like.
That's why I picked it because I was like, Kenny will be Chewbacca and Rob Baer will look like a really tall, skinny Labradoodle.
Yeah, it's like those werewolf people. Like I've seen documentaries on.
Yeah.
Like I'm basically. I mean, that's what I'll do. I just don't want to I don't want to be hairless. Like I'll just be this guy. I'll come up with new styles. I'll probably have like some sick. Like I'm saying, like I'm already imagining how wily I can go with my hairs and how I can present that as fashion. So there's going to be some braiding opportunities too for some sick facial. Like imagine if all French braids are like embedded and go to the back. I can get that going kind of everywhere. You know what I'm saying? I get that on my fucking face, coming back. I'll get that on my chest, shoulders, everything, back, top of neck. Oh my God, my neck hair is gonna be so bad.
Oh man, you could like braid your torso hair into like a girdle, like suck your gut in a little bit.
Oh yeah, like when I go, dude, I'm gonna be I mean, I'm so intrigued by it, even though I know it's going to be a headache. And the simple answer here is no hair, right? So you're just dealing with looking weird. No hair. But this one is also looking weird. But I feel like I could rock this, though. You know what I mean? Where I don't think
it can be cool.
I don't think I can rock just being hairless. I just don't think that's in the cards, you know?
Yeah. So
more maintenance and more work, but I think I can get it done. And I would choose basically 7 inches above. Oh, I have a tape measure. I will tell you right now.
I mean, that's the type of weird thing that could get you on like a publicity tour for a little while.
It can. I'm actually measuring live right now what my longest head hair is as I embed this on my scalp. Well, yeah, 6 inches, like we said. So 6 inches is the full length of every hair in my body. Damn, my fucking nose hair, though. Internal hair, man. That's rough. But I can braid it into my face.
Yeah.
That's doable. I can get away with that. Is it gonna also like accelerate like the follicles that like my age is waiting on? Because you know, like the older you get, like the more these follicles kind of activate and.
Yeah, it's every single hair on your body.
Fuck it, I'm doing it. Full body hair.
Gotcha.
Doing it.
You want to hear what the audience answered?
What?
So, 75% answered they just be hairless. They just be smooth.
So I'm an outlier.
A little bit. I mean, like there were some people who did vote on long hairs.
Well, that's probably because they had short ass hair. They probably had,
really yeah. You just turn into like a grimace.
I mean, you could even kind of game it if you were like kind of like going bald a little bit, and you've been like kind of maintaining short ass hair anyway.
It's true.
You got it. Like so, there's just definitely some people who game. I'm not.
Some people would be like Chewbacca. Some people would just be fuzzy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do it, man. Fuck it. I'll rock it. It's just gonna be a new lifestyle for me. But I don't even have to wear clothes anymore, though. Like straight up.
Yeah, you do.
Will I though? You said 6 inches. That's more than enough to conceal what I got going on. That's like triple what I need.
Okay.
Like, we're good. Oh my God, my feet. Ugh. Yikes. Anyway, good one. Shout out to the crowd for sourcing that answer for us. News Memorial Desk with Wyatt Turk. We're going to enter into our most professional segment of the day.
Yep. Play the evening news music as I walk over to the Rob Baer Memorial News Desk. Pretty small release stuff. Like we're only getting looks like 3 pre-orders. The Corsair Void Scarred Kill Team is going to go on pre-order this Saturday for $60. Going to get a Legionnaires Kill Team. Going to be $65. And I'm guessing that might be where they put that extra sprue. Because there's the upgrade sprue that came in that 2-player box. That's the only place to get like a heavy chain axe, balefire tome, that kind of thing for Legionnaires. Maybe that's how they'll release it. We're also going to get Kill Team Codex Nachmund pre-order on the 16th for $45.
What the hell is that?
It's like the rulebook expansion for Kill Team.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. That adds up.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So is that all the news?
Yep, that's the straight poop, son.
God damn, dude. We're fucking legends over here, man. Look how fast we are. Also, I guess, no, that preview, the new Goliath bike.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, but we have no idea when that's going to...
No, but it's sick. I just want to say for the record, that thing is tight.
It's very cool.
We did a whole breakdown on it in the after hours, where if you wait to the end, you'll even see our forensic study in converting, and we put up a bunch of pictures on the screen, and we try to decide if it's going to be possible to utilize that in Warhammer 40K as a bike, because Chaos bikes are coming back in a real way, and they're going to be all over the fucking place. So if you're interested in some of that information, and we even put out a hobby challenge. If somebody gets that bike and gets it to fit on a firstborn biker base and it looks sick, fucking show me how you did it. Make a tutorial. Something. Well, let's do... maybe we could promote. Is there a tournament coming up that we should promote?
Lone Star Open is on the 23rd and 24th of this month. There might be tickets left. It's going to be in Dallas. I'll be there. A bunch of people will be there. We're also doing kind of this cool promotional thing with Lone Star Open for the attendees. So if you are active duty or prior service, any of the branches, when you buy your ticket, you can actually register as kind of like a sub team. So for example, like I was in the Army, so I got to like put Army, get some discounts, get some cool stuff. There's points of contact for the various branches if you want to contact those people, because you can get a special room rate at the venue. And what they're going to do is they're going to track the people's scores independently. And then whichever branch has like the highest score, like they're going to win the event, right? So if the Marines, all the players who are playing or were in the Marines, if they score more than the other teams and like the Marines won LSO or whatever. So that's kind of cool. I appreciate that.
That sounds exciting. And I know based on chat, they previewed other things besides that bike. Like the plastic Leviathan.
Plastic Leviathan. There was new stuff for Space Hulk. Like Space Hulk is going to be like a kill team expansion with these like Voidsmen at Arms and Crew Mercs and some like Age of Sigmar skirmish games.
Yeah, stuff that might be exciting to certain people out there who've probably already, because that'll happen on Sunday, right? This preview is old news.
Yeah. So
I just saw that Goliath biker guy and I was like, please be convertible into a Chaos biker. Please, 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 please. So
yeah, don't get too excited. There are no like cool things in that Space Hulk. It's literally like a unit of Crew Mercs and a unit of these like Voidsmen in like it's like Imperial Guardsmen, but in like a hazard suit. I was really disappointed they made that Space Hulk.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's other people out there who are all into these other specialty games and stuff, but if it's not something in the box that I can turn into something 40K, like I just don't look at it. Not that there's anything wrong with being hype as fuck on getting your Blackstone Fortress box and painting every model in it and setting it up on a shelf and occasionally playing it as a board game. That's pretty cool, you know? So let's talk about Angron here. I think Angron happened between podcasts.
I think it was like the Friday after.
So classic GW, but actually it was a leak, right? And then that's what forced them to.
Was it though? I'm pretty sure that they do that themselves.
Well, when they do, snippy replies, like Angron was mad about his bad picture.
Yeah,
and then also the digital presentation of that image that they put out, like the graphic design of it, is different than how they normally do these things. Yeah. So it's almost like the regular design studio, like they were like, hey, whip some up real quick.
Yeah.
But regardless, internet has discussed it a lot. And the first picture that showed up was like all fuzzy and out of focus from a kind of a side profile. And then later that day, we got the more angles and clear picture. Okay. So there was a little bit of a journey for World Eater fans out there where you saw one shitty picture from the side for hours and hours. And then this other picture came out. And so Wyatt, being our number one World Eaters fan on this podcast, what's your opinion?
I think it was pretty tight. Won't lie. Like I had a problem with this model when they first showed it out because like I was busy that day. I had a lot of stuff to do. So I saw like one picture and it was a high quality picture because people were sharing it for Warcom. And with this one picture, I was like, man, I don't know about this because the promotional image they chose as like the ta-da, here's Angron. I know why they picked it, and it's because his face is directly facing the camera, and you can look straight into his face because he's like a named character or whatever. But the pose and composition of this model does not lend itself well to this, because you can barely see any of the model. You can see like his head, his wings, like one arm shoulder pad, like both of his legs are relatively hidden. You can see his two weapons. That's about it. And it wasn't until like I had time to watch the actual video they came out with that shows him like 360, where I'm like, oh, okay, he actually has a lot of really cool shit going on that you can't see in this promotional image. Like his face looks really weird in the promotional image until you see it.
It's a 3-dimensional model being presented on a 2-dimensional plane from an angle where they want you to see his face dead on. But because of phenomenons that occur based on viewing angles and foreshortening and other things in a macro focal range, you don't really see anything. The action's not there. Things look kind of distorted because our eyes don't even work that way. So they only gave us like a close-up on a sword, a close-up on like something else, and then that one viewing angle, and then that scramble picture they leaked. In reality, they should have given us a more cheated angle, and then one of the small close-up pictures in that graphic design should have been his face.
You know what's really weird too that I've noticed is I know why they present everything in this like really sterile like white background, and it's because it's, you know, they're doing it on a white background web design page. But the model looks so much better in the video where it's in like a properly thematically lit scene with a black void background, like in like a black light box, basically. I almost feel like they should have just had a black background to the model, because the color looks so much nicer in the video than it does in the promotional image.
Yeah. White backgrounds are oftentimes not optimized, in my opinion, but that journey was right. Like I feel like I went on that journey with you too a little bit, because I was not impressed by the initial profile shot.
Yeah,
and I think I echo everyone else's concern. Where everyone was like, he looks too much like a blitzerser, and he did from that side profile picture from a distance shot.
His face looks so flat, but then I think what they should have done is taken the image, or instead of taking it straight on, they should have turned the model like 30 degrees to the left or to his right, so you can see the depth of detail in the face. Because when you see that in the video, he's got like these really gnarly spikes coming out of his cheekbones, and like his jawline is completely different, and like he looks really cool. And you can see his like chest armor.
He has almost like a frog throat, like in the dead on picture, because you can't see depth. There's no way to perceive that depth perception.
Yeah, his neck is a lot longer than you think, so it looks more like the OG concept art.
No, agreed. And I, as the information was revealed to us, I kept upgrading my opinion of the model as well, until eventually I settled on it's the best fucking model I've ever seen. Like, I fucking love that goddamn model. I think it looks really like cool. Goddamn maniac, dude. His muscles are so jacked. His details are like, he has so many details that are like to be discovered, which is fun narrative stuff. Not like an endless, meaningless for detail's sake amount of detail either, right? Like very clear and concise lines, delineations between skin, leather, armor, classic angular approach to certain organic aesthetics, which is kind of like juxtaposition, right? Like you see like there's almost those boxy muscles in his wings that are holding his wing fingers, you know, like that kind of classic GW aesthetic. It's just like, and that face, initially I wasn't happy with the face, but that's how I felt about Mortarion too. When Mortarion first dropped, I was like, man, what's up with that fucking face? And then when I saw Mortarion, I was like, this model is sick, son. You know, so Angron, I like him even more than Mortarion. I think
part of it too is the way they paint things. Like when they do the actual like really vibrant red skin, that looks really good because they've blended it. You can tell in their technique they blended it. But then when it gets up into that darker maroon skin, they're doing these like really hard edge like line highlights on these like rounded muscle pieces. I'm like, why are you doing that? It doesn't look good. And then the way they did the wings is the flesh in the flap of the wing just looks doo-doo dog water. Like the lines on ridges and stuff is like fat and not very nice. So like other painters who have freedom in their painting styles will make this model look way cooler than it looks in the promotional images.
Yeah.
And my opinion, this tail is fucking stupid. You can't convince me otherwise. I'm gonna have to fix that when I get the model. That's not one thing I can't get down with. The design, not that he has a tail, it's the design of the tail doesn't look good. I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, my Mortarion is altered for certain reasons too. So,
and who knows? Like, Mortarion has option parts. Magnus has option parts. Mm-hmm. It is entirely within the realm of possibility that when this kit comes out, he's going to have option parts.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
like Magnus has like armor, no armor, dog. He's like Malibu Barbie, dude.
Yeah, so like it is entirely possible that maybe some option parts exist for this to kind of change his pose composition to make it look even better. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, like depending on how that tail goes into, that gets an obvious point.
Yeah.
Like he is sick. Can't wait to get my hands on him. He's jacked. He takes up a lot of fucking real estate. He is big.
He's probably on 100
yeah,
mil.
But like he's so thick, right? Like he's crouching, so he's not like over the top tall. But like the way he's coming in on you, but like that is a lot of volume on that kit. Like he is, man, I cannot wait. And I never thought I'd be this hype on Angron. I'll be like, okay, just a big demon guy. Cause I just think of the Forge World one, like the Forge World giant bloodthirster that we had, which is a sick OG Forge World sculpt, but it is very just devil demon, This guy is unique and has a signature about him, that's not just devil demon. So that's our opinion. Some people hate it. Some people love it.
Yeah. I thought it was fun. I just can't get down with the tail, man. I almost feel like what he should have is almost like a lion's tail. You know what I mean?
I mean, it doesn't even need a tail. No bloodthirster. I mean, bloodthirsters are just going to have bare asses. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably going to not have a tail in general. Just like sculpt some
like classic bare ass fucking chain bikini bloodthirster. I'm behind that, dog.
I don't know if we'll go that far, but he's wearing like a gladiator kind of big belly belt kind of thing, like torso belt with like
totally.
I just like sculpt some more of that tattered cloth hanging down.
Yeah, and also like tail. I mean, things break, so I typically change things based on like me not wanting them to break endlessly too.
It's true. Yeah.
So, this is a hobby that is predicated on craftsmanship, and always be thinking craftsmanship. What can I do to make this mine? What can I do to make this more efficient? What can I do to make me happy? Like that should always be in the forefront of your decision making, while also knowing that what you do is cool enough that somebody else would look at it and say, wow, Wyatt, that is dope. How'd you do that? Because that is, at the end of the day, the end result that an artist seeks is validation. So think about how to balance all of those and you'll always be happy. Now, someone in chat, Lavaris, this is where he says, guaranteed there's a tail that has a double head axe on it.
While that might tickle your pickle, I find that even worse. But if it makes you happy, put that tail on there, paint it.
Oh, and here's a good one too, because I saw this brought up a few times. Imperious Seth says, hard to tell from the picture if he's as good as the Creature Caster Bloodthirster. Now, I have a lot of experience with that model. And the Creature Caster demons are ballers. Okay? They are a very high level boutique manufacturer of demons. Historically. They have a long journey. All the way back to the Ultra Forge days. And I've had pretty much every Bloodthirster that design team has been a part of since day one. Okay? It is dope. Their Bloodthirster is fucking dope. Okay? Incredible. But it is not as good as Angron. And if you don't believe me, just wait till you have one in your hands. One of the big concerns that will always be a part of boutique model making is paintability. Yeah. Creature Casters come a long way in their paintability. But it's not GW level. GW knows how to emphasize the right elements of the model so that you could put the paint on it and make it look better. So even if your personal opinion is that you like the sculpt of the Creature Caster one better, that's an artistic subjectivity. Paint both or paint one and see which one actually looks better when you're done. You know what I mean? GW is going to almost always be the one that looks better when it's done.
Man, isn't this guy also like sculpted in the air with a lot of the weight on the
He is
down?
a boutique centerpiece model and has to be handled with care forever. Because as he's smashing the ground as he's coming down, it's dope. It's fucking dope. But he's hard to paint. He's hard to keep from breaking. He has a lot of creature caster style texture, which is like in contrast to big smooth armor plates. Whereas Angron has got a lot of that clean plastic, smooth muscle belly, which is very paintable.
Also, you have a good point. One of the reasons that I like Angron over this guy is it's called the King of War. The King of War could be like any generic demon because he only has this like hip armor and like a shoulder pad and gauntlet, and then he's just like a naked demon. I like demon princes in 40K that are like warped space marines with like a lot of power armor still going on. That's why I don't like the plastic demon prince they have right now because he looks too much like a naked demon. So Angron still having his like Primarch power plate that has been grown and warped into his new proportions looks really cool to me. Whereas this dude who's wearing like a gladiator harness with bare muscle everywhere is just not that tight.
It's actually something I've coached them on over the years. I've had a relationship with Creature Caster Design Studio for a long time. Is get some more fucking armor on your demons. From day one, and so they started doing that. They started with the not Nurgle one, the King of Ruin, the giant Nurgle version, where they're like, yeah, look, we put some armor on it. Same thing. It's like just like this like half-assed, like little chest,
little boob plate. Basically.
Like, brah, come on, man. No, we're talking like you need to be able to think that they might have been power armor. That's what we're thinking here, right? And even the King of War was in that same line. As I consulted with them, something I talked to a lot of boutique makers on is paintability. A lot of people are out there 3D design and stuff that is so ridiculously good, but unpaintable from a hobbyist perspective, where you're trying to use techniques to generate the result you want. And Creature Caster's not as bad as a lot of them, but they do take, that's why you see a lot of like, yo, check out my Creature Caster model on Instagram I just got. It's built. The next picture, it's prime black. Ghost town for fucking 2 years. Never painted. So that's the problem when there's a lack of paintability. Even Be'lakor, right, which is one of the sickest demons to date. And he's presented in black, right? And that's pretty much considered to be one of the harder colors to work with by a lot of beginner hobbyists. I've seen so many baller Be'lakors painted by beginner hobbyists on Instagram, just on the heels of that Games Workshop painting tutorial. Just using their techniques. We're going to do some dry brushing here. We're going to do some washing here. We're going to do this here. Just like so paintable that one of the hardest challenges for a new hobbyist is not a challenge based on that construction. So like, I'm telling you guys, you're going to see just so many fucking sick Angrons on Instagram when it's time. And I cannot wait. This is one of those models. Like this might be my new Gazgul. You're like, that like, I am stoked beyond belief to fucking get my hands on this guy, dude. Like I've been waiting my whole life for Mortarion to show up and fucking Angron to show up in this game. This is fucking a real awesome day.
Yeah.
So that's a good segue into our hobby AMA section, since we got kind of hobby oriented there toward the end of our opinions. And what you have from us today, guys, is you have two painters who have been fans of Warhammer 40K for some time. More than 10 years each. Sometimes more than maybe 20 years each. I don't even know. I can't remember. What, like 1999? Like how long ago was that?
It's over 20 years.
Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. That's how long I've been in the game. How about you?
So that would be 26 years for you. But I've been in since 02, so exactly 20.
So that's how long we've been doing this. We both have YouTube channels. We both fucking teach people how to paint. We both have Twitch channels. We're both very technique-oriented painters and airbrush artists. So we have an AMA. We've already crowdsourced some answers, some questions. Feel free during this live segment to keep AMAing. And if we have time, we'll try to get to as many as we can. So we will use our personal bias, our personal experiences, and knowledge base in general to answer the following questions. And I will present to Wyatt. Going back in time to when we asked these questions, we got Talowin. He asked, how do you get over hobby burnout after having kids? I've been finding it hard to even pick up a paintbrush. This is a common question, Wyatt.
That's a good. I'm a firm believer that you have to create the schedule that you want to have, and like you're the master of your own destiny, right? The captain of your ship. So I understand that having a job, having a family eats up a lot of time. I am a firm believer that just about everyone can find at minimum about half an hour of time they can devote to just painting. And you could be multitasking, like say, like you and the lady want to watch a show. You can just have that show on for an hour to a half hour, however long the runtime is. Just do a little bit of painting while it's on. So you're still spending time together, but you're like, I need to have this for me, right? Because it's part of your happiness. It's part of your self-fulfillment. Everybody needs that. If you're burned out, sometimes you do need a break. Like, you just need a break, man. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. If you are at the same time feeling like, I don't want to do this, but also having that feeling of like, I need to get things done. Like, I'm not getting things done. A couple of things is like, maybe don't buy stuff for a while. Like, if you have a huge backlog and you're like, oh man, I need to get through this. I have this pile of shame. One, don't have a pile of shame to start with. Only buy stuff after you finish painting what you purchased before. Maybe like sell some stuff that you don't think you'll ever get to. And then that way that's like hobby money back in your pocket. And then when something else comes down the line or you're feeling more like motivated to do stuff, you can like use that money to get things that you can do. Right. Also organizational tools, spreadsheets, right? Mm-hmm. I know it sounds weird. I have a like 30-minute video on how to paint an army in 2 weeks using spreadsheets. It's super nerdy and stupid, but I'm really proud of it.
It's a popular video too.
Yep. Make your schedule, figure out like budget your time and schedule across like a week, and then repeat that. And all you have to do is just be like, all right, today I'm going to, do this one step on like however many models I can do in like a half hour. And you will consistently get things done, which releases that little dopamine rush in your brain of like, I accomplished a thing. I feel proud of myself, Yeah. Think about that.
Yeah, no, this is a question that has been answered many times. There's likely not going to be a question in this AMA that we haven't answered before. And so Wyatt just answered you guys like every answer that we've workshopped, like every thing. And he's brought in some of my opinions. He brought in his opinions. Like, I don't have to fucking say anything. That's it. Like, that's like literally every element of hobby burnout, right? Because you're either burned out because you feel like you've been painting endlessly on a project and you just can't motivate yourself, right? Then there's burnout because you're just so exhausted from your life, right? There's like different types of burnout, and the answers to those burnouts are all in what he just said. There's one other thing that I never want to fail to remind people is if you're feeling burnout because you've been on a project too long and it's hard to stay on task, don't forget about audible.com.
Oh yeah.
We are not sponsored by them. Though one time they did pay us to do a commercial. That has been my secret tech as a commission painter for the last 12 years. But
yeah, dude. Well
answered, Wyatt. That is a sick answer.
Man. I'll also add I just totally lost my train of thought. I was going to add something. I'll come back to it.
All right. Maybe we'll circle back to it. Also, one of the points you made that I want to really commend you for is are you not feeling like painting, but your plastic pile of models you have collected are shaming you into painting them, right? When you look at them, you get anxiety because you're not doing something, but you're really not feeling it. That's a different feeling too. There's nuance to that particular feeling. And it's important to acknowledge what Wyatt said there. It's like, if you don't fucking feel like painting them, don't let them shame you. Yeah. Like, if you're just not in love with the project anymore and you fell in love with it, get rid of them. Sell them. So you are doing something. You are fulfilling that anxiety by doing something. You're moving those out of the Beats Lab in exchange for money, recouping some of your lost funds, and then beginning the next project. That's one of my favorite things you were talking about.
Okay. I remember what I was going to say. It's kind of like weight loss. Like, there's only two types of people, those who lose weight and those who like perpetually want to lose weight. There's only one way to do it. You have to do something. Sometimes that's all it is. It's like a wall that you have to climb over. Like, you've hit a wall and you just got to get over it. So if you're having that conflicting feeling, because the reason I bring that up is that's almost everybody in this sort of like Venn diagram of people is they have a lot of models that need to get painted. Like, in their mind, they paid money for them. They want to put them on the table. They want to put them on their shelf as display pieces, and they must be painted, but you don't want to paint. Sometimes you just have to power through that, or else it's never going to get done. And so that's kind of where like audiobooks come in. It's like running. It's like diet. Like, sometimes there's a part of your brain that is like, this sucks. I hate it. I don't want to do this. And it's because like it's actively thinking about things that you're not enjoying. So you just have to like distract that part of your brain. So like, I fucking hate batch painting. I really do. I can paint on a really cool character for a huge amount of time. I can do a really cool big model, like a tank or something, for a long amount of time and enjoy it. If I have to paint like 30 Space Marines, I can't stand that shit. So I have to turn that piece of my brain off by listening to a cool audiobook.
That's another awesome nuance, because that's in opposition to the fuck the pile of shame, get rid of it. But like, also sometimes power through it and distract yourself with your fucking sick audiobooks. We do have a recommended lit RPG list. If you're over on my YouTube or my Twitch channel, actually there is a command. I think it's !top4 or !top lit RPG. Ask me next time you see me on Twitch. We got a sick list that me and Wyatt have come up with of awesome lit RPG. That's our crack.
Yes.
Let me move on to the next question. Gnarl says, a YouTuber showed off a 1989 Warhammer art book. There were lots of conversions, but paint-wise, lots of checkerboards, stripes, and every faction had a Harlequin-looking model. Made me wonder how to paint plaid. Do you ever? ?
Yeah, the trick to it is to paint it in layers. So let's just say we're doing red, right? So you want to lay down a coat of red. Cool. Then you want to do the black stripes. Then you lay down your black crisscross. And then you want to do like the gray and the white ones, and then lay that down on top. That's really the only way I know how to do it. I did it a long time ago on some Infinity Highlander stuff. And that's the way that it was explained to me. So just do it in layers like that.
Yeah. Just go easy on the opacity and take your time, right? Just basically drawing what a grid with some dots. Was that how it's made?
Well, so plaid is like overlapping X and Y axis lines.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that video, or I saw that model you're talking about.
Yeah,
the highlighted theme stuff. Did you ever make a video on that?
No, this was way a long time ago. But yeah, that's the only time I've ever needed to do it, because I don't do a lot of fantasy or historicals, so plaid doesn't show up a whole lot.
Helldiver's cracking me up in chat right now. I'm gonna go out of secret just because he's cracking me up. He's like, "What do you do if you spent like thousands of dollars on learning to paint, but you still suck?" I haven't met a person yet, Helldiver, who spent $1,000 on formal education and sucks at painting. And I know you're probably being self-deprecating, but your airbrushing is incredible. Your Gargantua Squig-Off is incredible. I once saw you paint an entire orc speed freak army in like 3 weeks and bring it to LVO. Like, you're not talking about yourself, brother. Your shit is tight.
I was going to say, like, if you're paying Kenny and you haven't gotten better, like, you just got to pay him more.
Yeah,
like,
or that.
You haven't reached critical mass of like money in his pocket to unlock the skill points that you should get. Just got to pay him more.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's almost like, do I need to just like go to the Scientology website, just kind of copy and paste some things and change some stuff around?
Yeah.
Helldiver is awesome. His airbrushing is tight and his glazing skills are tight. So I just wanted to validate him. He might be feeling down about stuff. Maybe he's had a plastic pile of shame that's pissing him off right now. Let me run it back to and shout out right there that last one. That was Gnarl. Your boy Wyatt actually has experience with plaid. He just answered your question. Let's jump over to Ray Long. Do you have a best practices for layering oils and acrylics? What's the best way to prevent inks from tearing while working fast?
I don't use oil paints.
There's like three bullet points, right? So he's asking about layering oils and acrylics, and he's talking about inks. So there's like three separate compounds here with three separate pH balances and three separate mediums, or two separate mediums. So these are three separate products, Ray. So right at the gate, if you're seeing them as interchangeable products, they are not. Ink is not acrylic. Okay. So ink needs to be protected. So if you're messing around bulldogging an ink and then letting it dry and then you start bulldogging again, yeah, you can rip that shit off. It's not pH balanced acrylic paint. They're not the same thing. So you want to use inks in ways that inks are meant to be used. Well, actually, that's not even true. Inks have all sorts of uses. And right now in the current era of miniature painting, you see a lot of ink being used as a filter. Okay. Meaning it is lowered on opacity and applied over something. And so the thing you have applied it over is informing it, usually in a value capacity, meaning dark and light. And then you're taking this hue from the ink. And the reason ink is like desirable is because it maintains a very high saturation, even when it's low opacity. So that's a very specific usage for that. Now, acrylic paint is the catch-all, greatest of all things. Right? It's advanced technology. It's a polymer. It was invented in a laboratory. And it's water soluble and it dries fast. It does everything. Whereas oils are old school grandpa technology, right? Some dude in the field, pestle and mortaring up some flowers for a special pigment, dripping some oil in there to keep it wet so he can fucking sling it onto a canvas. Like that's old tech. Still being used today. Obviously, it's able to maintain high saturation as well, even when it's thin. But it suffers from things like dry times and workability, or dry times after you've gotten that lengthy workability. But as far as layering goes, oil simply is make sure it's set before you keep going, right? Advantage, long workability. Inks, high saturation filters. Acrylics can do anything, right? You can layer with acrylic, lower the opacity, mitigate the moisture, keep going. You can even do some of what ink does, actually most of what ink does with acrylic, right? You can allow it to filter over it and create some high saturation moments that rival both oil and ink. So just make sure you're using the thing for the right job, the product for the right job, but also protect your shit, right? If you hit it with oil and then you start painting wet acrylic right over it, what happens, Wyatt?
Oh, it's not gonna mix because that oil probably isn't dry.
Right. Like oil is hydrophobic, son. Right. So you got to protect the neck. I think of best practices because he used that word. Anytime I lay down a quick airbrush job and I got some sexy transitions, I varnish the model before I start fucking ham-fisting it. I recommend that as a best practices for any of these techniques. You're bulldogging some oil, you're getting some great results out of it. Make sure it's cured. Hit it with a varnish because a varnish will cling to it and is an acrylic polymer that will allow a reset point to do any of the other techniques over it safely. That's my best practices for layering in this combination. Now, that was a long-winded explanation. Wyatt actually has more experience with using oils in different capacities. He doesn't use oil painting techniques, but you do use a lot of enamels and oils, right?
Yeah, you just gotta have patience. And like if you have some of those long set time things, like I have a lot of oil effect paints, like engine streaks and rust, things of that nature. They just take a while. So you got to plan your painting session around those techniques, just like a bunch of other stuff. Like if you're using a very thin water-based wash, like the Army Painter wash on your models, I plan my painting time around like, okay, last thing tonight is I slap that wash on there and then I go and eat dinner and I go to bed. Because I know that stuff is not going to evaporate and dry for like an hour or two. So I don't want to sit around and wait for it. Or you can plan it like around your lunch break.
And Wyatt is usually working with like washes, right?
Yeah.
Like oil washes are very specific, right? They're a tool to be used. And Ray Long, I know I've seen some of his recent pictures. He's getting more into that Wapple like oil painting. Yeah. So think about what Wyatt just said. He's like, yo, I'm going to go eat dinner, maybe sleep on it. Bro, that's just a little bit of wash thrown in the cut, son. When you start messing with, wet on wet oil technique, man, you might not realize how much dry time sometimes it requires.
I've got to have patience like that.
Because this is not an evaporation process. This is a curing process, right? And acrylic is a two-stage because acrylic, there is an evaporation process, water, but there's also how long does it take for acrylic to cure? Very fast. So that's why I like acrylic.
Yeah, with the oil wash, I still got to varnish them. So varnish is...
Still varnish them. Best practices, baby. Let's run it back. We've got a couple more. Here's one. We're going to switch gears, I think. Are we switching gears now? Oh, this is a great one. Yes. From Getov Nrak. Great classic AMA. He says, how much do you guys make from endorsements when you create videos using specific products? As a solid AMA. A lot of people ask those types of questions of other content creators on the internet because they want to know things like that. I can tell you from personal experience, very little actual dollar bills exchange hands with my business model. And for the most part, I believe that's Wyatt's situation as well.
Yeah, it's really easy to answer. The few times that I have been paid to demonstrate products, I signed a contract. I'm not allowed to talk about that. So not allowed to tell you.
Not allowed to tell you. I don't sign pieces of paper. And I can tell you. So the very few times I've been paid to paint something very specific for someone, the most amount of money that I've ever charged and received is $600. And that is less than 1% representative of how my deal usually goes down. My deal usually go down as, hey, Kenny, have you seen this new thing we got? And I'm like, I have not. Send me something to look at. They send me it to look at. If it's tight, I say, yeah, I like it. They're like, well, can you do something for us? And I was like, yeah, here's my package. And my package says $600 for a video, or send me this many free samples of your product so I can mail them out to people on Twitch. 9.99999 repeating is, we'll send you that stuff. So that has essentially been my endorsement package for 6 years. They send me stuff, but only after I've used it and I like it, because I only mess around with shit that I think is the tightest shit. So not a lot of money in the hobby game, especially for startups. So I try to give them options that isn't sending me money. To answer it. Now, and good question. And it's everything's fair when you say it's an AMA. Spock NZ. Here we go. Here's another gear. We're flipping it. 10th edition rumors. What would you change in 9th edition for the next new edition, Wyatt?
Would I change? Like to the core rules?
Yeah.
I don't think I would change anything, to be honest.
You don't have a wish list?
I mean, I think the only really confusing core rule that we have is the way that fights first, fight last interacts in the fight phase. I think that could get cleaned up a lot, but I actually don't believe we need a new edition, because I think a lot of people conflate how a rule set is modified by codices rather than the actual skeleton of the rules. I think that the skeleton of 9th edition is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think the way that it's being changed and altered by codex rules needs to get fixed, in which case that's a codex problem. Those codexes need to get fixed. But I don't actually think we need a 10th edition. And if we get one, I think the only thing I would fix is how those I fight before you or I make you fight after me rules work for the fight phase. Otherwise, it's fine.
I mostly echo what you just said as well to offer my opinion on that. I would say if we're talking a new book has to come out, 10th edition's dropping, here's a new book. I don't have very little suggestions for the skeleton, as you said. Very little suggestions. Okay. I would say terrain. I'd like to see that get cleaned up a little bit. We've already mentioned things like Titanic, keyword interactions, and stuff like that. I'd like to see a little bit of a cleanup on how keywords are applied to terrain features, because I think they did a great job by bringing these keywords in so we can have abstract terrain again, and that's really good for the game. But I think it's a little over the top. I think that if they were to revisit it in 10th edition, I think you can really just take that word salad out of there and all these like bullshit fucking terms. What we need, all we care about after we've played now for this amount of time with these new terrain rules, all we care about is there a obscuring aspect to this terrain feature, right? We care about that. We care about, is there a -1 to hit component to this terrain feature? We care about, is there a movement penalty to this terrain feature? And is there obviously a cover component to this terrain feature? That's all that fucking matters. Fuck all that other shit, right? That's it. Those are the bullet points. Put them on essentially every terrain feature and then invert the keywords to what benefits from it, right? So we know that only models with less than 18 wounds benefit from this feature, or you can say the following keywords are excluded from this. You see what I'm saying? I'd like to see a much more stylized version of that obscurement and that defensive terrain features and all that stuff. I like to see a little bit more cleanliness. I like to see the introduction of how Titanic keywords interact with these things so they're not getting shit on. That'd be my one wish list, right? Outside of that, fucking love it. And even with the rules right now, we just play around it. Like, you know, every tournament you go to, we just get rid of the bullshit ones and we just deal with the ones that matter, you know? So I wouldn't even care if it doesn't make the cut. And I think I maybe would like a paragraph, Wyatt, in the beginning of the new codex that just kind of officially says, like, these are the core rules of Warhammer 40K. These will always be here. You never have to change anything about this. This is always a book that will serve you well throughout this edition. However, for match play, there will be seasonal updates to these core rules. There will be balance updates and chapter approves. And this is what that means. So just to help people from like day one crack that book open and understand that for the tournament circuit, for the match play, there's gonna be some cool ass season shit. So instead of it being this like thing that annoys people, it's this thing that maybe someone could look forward to.
Yeah, I'd second that. Like, kind of just a preface would be nice.
Yeah. But ultimately, meh. Oh, and Kara Quinn, he brought up USRs. You know, it might be time for USRs to come back.
I vehemently disagree. Unless they want the game to stagnate, I hate USRs, because the problem that we have with USRs is they needed the new factor. So they kept making these new USRs where you had to reference other USRs. So it's like, oh, if you had this, you're like, okay, define this USR. And it's like, see this one and see this one.
Oh, you know,
you're like, right. Why? Why did we need that? That's dumb.
No, you're right. Because it said, you know, Plague Marines have Feel No Pain. You have to actually flip to a new section of the book to see what Feel No Pain is. Instead, it's there in the data sheet. Yeah. Nah, I don't care. Universal Special Rules is what that stands for. I don't care about it anymore. I'm over it. Somebody like Lavaris asked, what's a USR? Universal Special Rules. That's what Linda, how the game used to work was it would tell you something like Plague Marines have Feel No Pain. You'd have to flip to the USR section. It tells you what Feel No Pain is. And so basically anybody who had a roll of 5 up to ignore damage as it is now, it just said Feel No Pain. Everyone had the same thing and you had to flip to this section of the book, right? And over time, you got to know them.
I will concede that I think what they should do is stop the naming convention of giving a new name to a rule that already exists.
That's a good compromise.
They should just call that all the same. Like, so if it is a rule that, like, on the roll of a dice, you ignore a wound on a 5-up, just call that like Feel No Pain 5+. Because some people have Feel No Pains on a 6+ or Feel No Pains on a 4+. But I don't think there's a reason to have like 10 different rules that all do the same thing simply because it's in a new codex. So I'll concede that point. But I think the USR system from previous editions was no bueno.
And some people in chat, you know, like, and the thing is, I understand the concerns, like at KR Kuhn's point and LT's point. So I like that middle ground here. I like the fact I would like to standardize it so it's easier to understand. But I also do vastly enjoy that what we have is a bunch of units with basically the same rule with a different flavor text of why. And to me, that's very cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, disgustingly resilient is literally the same thing that this other guy has, but he's like, instead, like, heroically steadfast. You know what I mean? Like, I have no problem with that. That doesn't bother me in any capacity, you know, but maybe a streamlining, maybe it just, you know, because it was really convenient now that I'm thinking back to when something just said feel no pain, 5 up. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is actually highly convenient. Like,
yeah,
you know,
some of those are cool. And like, yeah, keep the flavor text and some different, if it's a unique rule, I'm fine with that. But if it's a rule that other people have, I don't think there's a need to give it a different name, because that's what we conceptualize it as at the table. So if you tell me, oh, my guys have disgustingly resilient, I'm like, oh, what does that do? What is your response?
Yeah.
It's a feel no pain.
It's feel no pain. That's what I say all day. Everyone says that. So anybody who's not, anybody asking what's a USR probably is confused when somebody says I got feel no pain.
Yeah.
But, you know, and now that I think about it more, Kara Quinn, one of the major reasons USRs became garbage is because of how independent characters interacted with units. That was a primary issue that we had, was scheming on exploitive ways to utilize USRs, because in that era, it would say one of two things. Models in this unit with the following rule have X. Then it would say, as long as one model in the following unit has this rule, X. That doesn't mean shit right now. That literally doesn't mean shit right now. You know what I mean? Because we can't attach shit to things. But back in the day, that was an issue when you had one guy dragging his USRs into the squad, but then you also knew he could benefit from their USRs, and you could drag another guy into, you know, that's the part that really got clusterfucked. So it wouldn't even be as much of a problem just right now. And if we cleaned it up a little bit.
I'm a little too cynical on this point. Like, I've seen what Games Workshop does, because like part of the ethos of Games Workshop's like making this game is they have to constantly have like new things, so that people are like, oh, I got this new thing for my army, right? They have to drive that hype engine, which is how we got like, well, this USR combines these two other USRs. You have to go and you have to reference them. And there would be instances where like a unit in a book would have a USR and it would say like, see this USR, and that other USR wouldn't even be in your book. And so you have to like,
that's something else you guys got to realize, is that when USRs are locked behind a paywall. That's something you guys got to remember.
Yeah.
Because USRs are core rules. So there is a convenience factor to having a data sheet. End of story. That's my rules. So there's benefits to both of these, and I don't think it's something that GW, you know, is going to do, but ultimately, if they did it, wouldn't stop me from scheming. Wouldn't stop me from learning everything. I'm gonna fucking digest it and memorize it just like I always do. So, like, I'm over it now. Like, I can take it or leave it. Let me swing back to thank you for that topic. Who was that again? Spock NZ, thank you. We've got Sea Monster USMC. So what, Sea Monster United States Marine Corps? Here's one for you. Wyatt, best way to grim up my Renegade Knights.
Ooh. Well, it depends on what you mean. That is a exceptionally broad genre.
What's your best way?
If you want to weather them, there is a wealth of knowledge online on how to properly weather vehicles of all shapes and sizes and paint jobs and different stuff like that. So I highly recommend that you go on a personal journey of education into the scale modeling world. There is 1,000,001 products. They are almost universally cheaper and of a higher quality than most quote unquote miniatures labeled things like Games Workshop makes. Probably the biggest brush to paint that with, metaphorically, is a product called Streaking Grime from AK Interactive. It's sort of a blackish green brown fluid that you can wash all over your model, and then use an odorless thinner to streak and clean that up a little bit. So you have that grime and kind of dried, dusty patina around the edges. So you can kind of blend it out so it looks really cool.
And this is not an acrylic. It's not water soluble. That's why I said odorless spirits. If you're a beginner,
it's an enamel product. That's generally like how it's defined in the category. You know, it's different than like enamel paint of that you might conceptualize.
There's a negative space element to the way he applies them, and Wyatt has a lot of videos on scale modeling strategies and techniques.
Yeah,
and so that's a great resource if you just hit Objectiveless Painting on YouTube if you want to know more about how to grim up your shit, right?
Like, first go and watch all my videos. Second, go find people that are like real diehards in the scale model community because they're way better than I am. I actually watch other scale modelers on YouTube. One particularly, his name is Night Shift. Like you work the night shift, it's spelled like that. Insanely talented armor modeler, and he has a really good way of describing how to do these techniques to beginner style people. Whereas sometimes you'll go to a scale modeler and they're like this really crusty old guy and they have a bad way of explaining it. So I really recommend Night Shift. And the thing I've seen a lot over the years is a lot of people who start off in Warhammer kind of get sucked into this brainwashing thing that Games Workshop does really well, which is like they get it in their head that unless something is labeled and marketed as for miniatures, that it doesn't work on your Space Marines, which cannot be farther from the truth. So anything that you see somebody do in a scale modeling video, you can directly correlate to your miniature stuff. It's just that scale modeling tends to skew towards realism rather than the sort of like comic booky, cartoony, sci-fi aesthetic that we normally see with Warhammer. It's just you have to think about it a little bit. So I'm like, okay, so if this guy is doing this paint chipping on his tank in the scale model video, I could probably alter one or two colors and do that same thing on my Imperial Guard tank or my Space Marine tank, and it'll look really cool, even though it's not technically scale model realistic, right?
Yeah. And the reason I recommended Wyatt, and that was very humble of you to recommend Night Shift, because Wyatt does this technique and he applies it to Warhammer 40K for you already in a lot of his videos. So like he's so cited one of his sources, but Wyatt does a good job of bringing the two together so that he can create sustainability and attainability while leaning on some of these more realistic techniques without, destroying the contrast of his model.
Yeah.
So
the best thing I can tell you is if you want that look, do not look to Games Workshop to help you because they are really bad at that. Like they'll tell you things that just straight up aren't true. And you have to look at the scale modeling side and also just kind of like read up a little bit. Like I see people use like a bright teal paint that Games Workshop makes to weather certain metals that just doesn't happen. Like steel and iron does not oxidize teal colored. That's for like copper and some mixtures of brass. Most brass actually turns a brownish black color if it oxidizes, meaning it's exposed to oxygen. So what color does steel and iron oxidize? Rusty orange. So if you've got a bunch of steel, like exposed metal on your tank or on your like Space Marine spiky parts, you should weather those with an orange patina to create a rust effect and not teal because that metal doesn't do that.
You get and that's the scale model has got all that shit unlocked. Like they don't fuck around with not real shit.
Yeah. Then the icing on the cake is that like these companies have been around for a lot longer than Games Workshop, and they understand that people in scale modeling do not fuck around with price gouging. So, like I said, almost universally, when you go and you get a product from AK or Ammo by Mig Jimenez, or in some instances Vallejo, Tamiya, Mr. Hobby, they're cheaper.
Oh. Let's run it back to Nocturnal Right. That's my boy A-Dog right there. He says, I've got a question for y'all. He says for yeah. I'm just going to throw y'all in there. Maybe old news. There has been rumors of 10th edition coming out soon. As a new player, how would this affect players like me And what, if anything, do you guys recommend we do if this were to be announced within the year?
So the best thing you can do is build out your collection, maybe get like some redundancy in some unit choices. So as a really easy example, if you have Gas Space Marines, you only have one unit of Havocs.
He's a Dark Angels fan, so I can even
get Dark Angels. So let's say like if you only have one unit of Deathwing Terminators, maybe get a second unit, paint those up. When those are done, kill some more time. Get a unit of Black Knights. When those are done, kill some time, get some Devastators, get some Hellblasters. Like just go one unit at a time and try to have a little bit of redundancy in your unit choice because it builds out your collection and you can have that kind of like ready to go. Mm-hmm. But honestly, like in mindset, if there's a new edition that's coming out, like if at the start of next year, it's most likely going to be at LVO or Adepticon. That's when they like to announce those types of things. So if we're like at Adepticon in March and they're like, oh, big announcement, and they show like a teaser trailer for 10th edition, at that point, the one thing that you need to get into your head is the king is dead, long live the king. Like nothing is sacred, burn it to the ground. The new edition is all, don't hold on to how something used to work or what you used to like about this edition or whatever. It's just like there is only the new edition, in which case you will pick it up way faster and you'll enjoy it way more.
Mm-hmm. Build out the collection. Don't be paralyzed by indecision. Build a core collection of your army so that it never stop hustling. Don't wait for it. Don't get in that place where you're like, well, I want to wait to see what the rules are before I keep going. I'm gonna just stop right now. Nope. You're just making excuses for yourself. You're giving yourself permission to stop. Just keep doing exactly what you're going to do. These aren't the last models you're ever going to paint. They're not even, close to the 1,000th level to last. You're going to always be painting. It's fun. It's craftsmanship. Build that core, like Wyatt said, because then it doesn't matter. You just kind of move around. Maybe you don't need those 2 Terminator units anymore, or only 1. That's fine. You had a blast painting them. Nothing matters. So, yeah, I agree with you, Wyatt. That's exactly what's up. It's like Doctor Who. People are like, who's your favorite doctor? I'm like, who's a doctor right now?
Yeah.
They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, man. That's all I give a fuck about.
Yeah. I mean, there's like, if you're a sports guy, there's a good sports analogy. I mean, like if you're playing in the NFL every Sunday and the word comes down like, hey man, you can't horse collar tackle people anymore. Well, the only thing you can do as a player is be like, well, guess I can't do that anymore. Because if you do it, you're going to get a penalty. You're going to get a fine in some cases. Like if your coach comes down and says like, hey man, you've got to put knee pads in your pants. We've been getting too many knee injuries. You can't be like, fuck that shit, because you might get benched, right? So you as a player of 40K have absolutely zero control over how these rules are released. Games Workshop is the arbiter of your fate. So the best thing you can do is just be fluid, be like water, like Bruce Lee.
Yeah. Some G Kundo in there. Dalen Penrod, top tips for a first timer to LVO.
Ooh, okay. Let's see. What are some good ones? If you don't have an army tray, carry your army around, get a tray. If you don't want to carry a tray, there's the little like collapsible carts you can get at Walmart for like hella cheap. Those are really useful. I would normally recommend bringing like a small soft cooler, but they don't like outside food and drink stuff. So what I recommend is if you have an army case, like a brain fart, like a hard Citadel case or a battle foam case. Here's a little hack for tournaments. If you want to bring outside food and drink in your room, you take all the foam out of your battle foam case, and then you put your little soft cooler inside of there so that it's hidden. Because what's going to happen is those security guys are going to be watching all these dudes walk in with all their Warhammer crap, and they'll just see another one of those cases and think your hobby shit is in there, and they won't see a cooler. Because if they see a cooler, they're going to be like, hey, no outside food. So that'll help if like you have dietary restrictions or you don't want to spend like $6 for a can of Dr. Pepper, right? Wear comfortable shoes. Don't fuck around on that. What are some other cool things? I see a lot of people, like if you have feet, knee, and back problems, if you get one of those little like play place like square pieces of foam, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the standing foam.
Yeah, like just get like a square of that and just like carry it around with you and just like stand on that instead of the like hard surface or the trump down carpet or whatever. It'll help you a lot.
Yeah, some great tips. Army tray is one of my favorite tips there. That's something I think a lot of people forget. It's maybe a lot, very convenient.
Have rules references. Like I, to this day, print out my data sheets to have your cards on you and spend some time beforehand, really like getting super tight on your rules and the core rules. So if you're like not used to some like errata rare rules interactions, like drill yourself on those, because LVO is like the biggest event of the year and people come from all over and it's kind of like the big dogs. And so you don't want to be in that situation where you're wasting your time and your opponent's time by like having to look something up or not knowing how something works or something like that. So just like really be on your game.
Yeah, boy. Also, LVO is finally branching out into taking the secondary elements of a wargaming convention more seriously. So there's a lot of things to do to that are just not plain. So if it's your very first time to LVO, know that it's still very heavily focused on the championships. So I don't know what your game level is, like what your commitment to the hobby is, but that's the major emphasis of that trade show. But they do have a lot of things now that they didn't used to have. So, you know, understand that you can fill your time doing other cool things. And so as a first timer to LVO, you might be unaware of that. All right, let me run it back. Let's see what we got here. Brandon Caesar, when applying oil paints as washes. Ooh, this is Wyatt's shit right here. / weathering. How long do you let them dry before removing the excess? Before reactivating them or messing with them, I guess we're saying.
The short answer is depends on the product. So when I'm using like the Mr. Hobby stuff, I kind of have to wait until it starts setting. And that is a hard question to answer because it entirely depends on the environment that you're in. It could depend on the dryness of the air. It could depend on the temperature of where you're painting in your house or garage. It could depend on the elevation that you live at, different things like that.
Yeah, well, reactivation to anyone listening. So like one of the advantages to oil is its longer work time and its reactivation. So a lot of it is, again, a negative space concept, right? Where you can lay down your oils, but you also subtract the product from the model quite easily with a variety of tools, maybe even like a cotton swab, right? With some other spirits, right? So what you're looking to do is have the oil in a state where it's kind of self-supportive now, right? Where it's like kind of can hang out where it is on the model. And it's not just being utterly influenced by gravity and moisture and like what liquid does, right? Because then as you're removing the oil and maybe having to bring a little bit more liquid to the model, aka your oil as a solvent, it doesn't just flood real estate and then drop all the corners back down that you wanted to stay there while subtracting from this area. So I just look at it when I visually inspect my oil model, depending on whatever product I'm looking at, I'm just like, is it still acting like a liquid? It's kind of like my mental checklist, you know, like if it's not acting like a liquid anymore, it's time. Let's go.
Yeah, because you just don't want it to cure, because if it cures, you won't be able to reactivate it or blend it. So what I recommend is like the products that you have that you're using, get like 3 or 4 models and prime them in like a vibrant color, like a fire engine red or a light blue or like a khaki color. And then just do like time tests. Be like, okay, I'm gonna put this on, and this one's gonna be for like 2 minutes. This one's gonna be for 5 minutes. This one's gonna be for 10 minutes, or maybe like 20 or 30 minutes, depending on the product. Again, you can tap into the scale modeling world because oil washes are much more prevalent in that world. So you can be like, well, I have this like Absalon oil paint with this thinner. Let me like, do a YouTube search and see if somebody has a video where they're using that same thing, because there probably is.
Yeah. Yeah. Those guys are fucking gangsters, and they're frugal, so they got all the information. Let's run it back. Got a couple more before we'll wrap it up for tonight. Freelancer ASP. What recipe would you all use for muzzle burn and or process for applying decals to make them not look like crap? 2 bullet points here, 2 separate questions.
Ooh, okay.
What you got?
All right. So on the muzzle burn, you and I are diametrically opposed, because I'm always going to skew towards what looks real. Easiest thing I do, just take your airbrush, some black matte paint, do a little bit of carbon buildup around that barrel. This easiest, most realistic looking thing, because that's actually what happens in real life. It's like,
like that's a soot. Like for sure.
If you're throwing a bunch of rounds, what's going to happen is you're going to have black Vaseline and carbon buildup on the muzzle of the weapon, which creates that sort of like patina that you can rub off or whatever, right? And then what was the second part of the question?
Oh, decals.
Decals. Really, really easy way. When in doubt, before applying your decals, hit them with a gloss varnish. Let that dry and cure totally. And then there is a product from Micro Scale Industries Incorporated. And it's a 2-part solution. One is called Micro Sol, and the other is called Micro Set. They are decal setting and softening solutions. Always use those instead of just water.
That information has been circulating the hobby world for a long time. And if you just the first time you just heard of Microset, Microsol, you are going to have many videos at your disposal on YouTube of people utilizing those products, because they are old as scale modeling is. And they do absolutely create the best fucking decals. Like, no fucking doubt, night and day, above contestation. You know what I mean? Like, it can't even be discussed.
Yeah.
Now, my diametric opposition to Wyatt.
Oh, right. Yeah.
If you go for a soot look, like, that's fine. If you're going for competition, Harley Davidson, aesthetically curated, exhaust pipe bluing, like that.
Tempering.
Yeah, tempering. Like, that shit doesn't really happen very often on its own, you know? And if it does, it's because like of a endless, non-interrupted stream of heat, you know, that is like constantly going to the point where like this thing is useless now, you know? So the shit you see on motorcycles, that was done to them, you know, it's for beauty, for aesthetic. So I do on occasion, am guilty of utilizing that effect on some of my weapons in Warhammer 40K. I typically try to hold them to the hottest weapons, like the multi-melta or maybe like a heavy flamer. But it is a easy thing to make look preposterous. And if you don't like it to look preposterous, you can actually just dry brush it on. You can literally just use something like burgundy, any purple, any blue, just kind of like three one and dones. Loose dry brush the burgundy, loose dry brush the purple, loose dry brush the blue. If you keep it kind of subdued, it'll be very embedded in the model and not over the top. But I have on occasion, more than once, brought that shit to 11. And it's not always the greatest, effect. If the rest of your army has a more subdued vibe, it'll be an eyesore.
Yeah.
It will look good. Like my Blood Age, as a matter of fact, have that on their multi-meltas, but I'm using the dry brush version, where it's much more, you have to look at it for a second to see it, versus opaque airbrushing. iDoom NBG. Do you recommend using a satin or gloss varnish? I added this one. This is our last one from earlier. Because I thought I answered him in chat, and I was like, you know what? That's a good one.
Yeah. Always use varnishes. The finish is totally up to your taste, right? Typically, gloss varnishing stuff, you should only use that on things that you actually want to be shiny, like gems or wet surfaces or like the eyeball of something, right? Otherwise, it's going to look real weird because it's reflective and it's glossy. It doesn't always work right. Yeah. For tabletop miniatures, there is a couple of pros and cons between satin and matte. Some people like super matte, looks real realistic, not very shiny. You can see the paint, Problem with matte varnish is that on a very, very tiny level, on like the microscopic level, and this is all paints, by the way, it has a rough surface to it. There's lots of little, what you could call pores in that. And over time, matte varnished models tend to get dirtier faster because of the accumulation of dust, the oils from your fingers as you're playing with them, and different things like that, right? But you get that look. Satin varnishes have a little bit of shine to them, which means that it has less of that porous nature. So over time, it'll protect the models better. Every once in a while, you should clean your models with like some spritzing of like watered down iso alcohol to like blast that dust and grime off of there from your fingers. And it'll help that. Also, don't store your models in direct sunlight unless your windows are UV treated, because like your stuff can get sun damaged. So be aware of that. But the look is entirely up to you. I will tell you from experience as a like competition and commission painter and content creator, that if you want to photograph your models, so like if you are all about your Instagram or your Facebook or whatever it might be, like showing off, your big old painting dick, matte models always photograph better than satin ones because they are non-reflective. So you're not going to have a shine bouncing light off of the model into the lens of your camera. So a lot of times what I do is when I finish a model, I will give it a light matte varnish, take all my pictures, and then when I'm ready to store it or go play with it, I'll hit it with satin varnish, which tends to look better over a longer time and protect it better.
That's solid advice, man. I also am in preference of satin. Like, you want a nice light satin varnish. There's a lot of different companies that make them. Sometimes trial and error, but I agree with everything you just said for those exact reasons. What are the reasons why satin looks so good? And it can actually kind of upgrade the vibrancy of a model, is that it is low key that wet feeling, right? And I always tell people, it's like, how like when it rains and you go outside and everything just looks so intense because it's all wet after it just finished raining. And then like 20 minutes later, it looks normal again. Like that, through the filter of shine, things tend to look more vivid, more saturated, right? And that's just the nature of the way light works, the way our eyes work and everything. But when you take it to full shine on the scale of models that we interact with, it doesn't look good because it's just bouncing all the light all over the place on tiny ass little models. So if you can kind of get a foot in the door on that, you actually kind of upgrade the vividness of your models permanently without the negative ramifications of it refracting too much light. The other reason we like to use varnishes, not mentioned, I don't think yet, because protection is foremost, right? Protect your fucking models you spend all this time on. But secondly, if you use a lot of products that we just discussed, like you got some oil washes going in there, you got some acrylic washes, you got some of this, you got some of that, a lot of these things dry to a different finish.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Now, sometimes that's what you fucking want, and you need to know that. When I know that's the case, I do that after I've varnished a model and I don't varnish that thing, right? A lot of times when I use my weathering powders, I will put a touch of powder on something because I want it to look powdery forever. Maybe I'll reapply it later if it wears off. But you're going to get everything knocked down to the same consistency level, and you can also get some vibrancy.
So, good point. Uniform that finish.
Yep. I hear my dog barking live on this podcast. Wonder if my food is here. Probably. And on that note, we will get out of here. Thank you guys for submitting so many, insightful questions. Allow us the opportunity to pretend like we had some content prepared tonight. But I will turn it over to Wyatt and he can take us out of here.
Oh man, if you want to get all of our extra content head over to thelongwar.net. Become a patron of The Long War today.